Unbuttoned podcast. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Julie.
Join us for unbuttoned and unedited conversations.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Suspenders Unbuttoned podcast. My name is Sarah.
And I'm Julie, and we're excited to welcome Ryan Murphy, producer. Welcome, Ryan.
Hello again. How are you ladies doing?
Good. It's fun to have you here. We met you actually last year in person, and we've been talking about doing this for a while. So thanks for finally agreeing to come on.
Thank you for having me. As I said, I think when we met, I'd love to do it. I'm just waiting for the time to be right.
Yeah.
So I didn't let
timing.
any spoilers slip.
Yeah, 'tis the season now, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we have, we met you at Ben Ayers fan event, and that was at Martini Town in Vancouver for Romance University. Was that your first time being at a fan event?
No, I've been to a bunch of them over the years. It was Christmas cons and other things. Mm-hmm. And then Ben and Gemma, who owns from Martini Town, when I heard they were doing it, I was up there anyway. So I went and hung out, but it was a great time. Yeah. I think everybody had a good time. They may be doing it again this year or next year. So it was good.
Yeah, it was a fun weekend, a beautiful, beautiful event.
Yeah, the sun came out just in time for the event to happen. It was stunning.
Yeah, weather was perfect. I remember the weather was absolutely perfect, especially Vancouver in that time of the year. Because if it's cold and raining, it is not fun.
And it was cold and raining around everything except for when the event was happening. It was kind of magical.
Yes.
Have you guys been back up there since?
No.
Okay, yeah. I know that they've expanded and they've added some more to the location as well. So I'm sure the next time will be fun. Yeah. Gemma keeps everybody busy up there for sure.
Yeah. She was lovely. It was fun to have a conversation with her. So you are here because a big project is coming out in Hallmark Plus, the Groomsmen trilogy. And
it's very exciting.
On the 17th, so very soon.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much you guys date your podcast or not, but it's this coming week for us now, Thursday. And for the last 2 years of working on it, it's definitely ready to come out because it's been a lot of work in the best way possible, but it's ready for them to come out. So it'll be fun.
So that process took 2 years. How did you get involved in the Groomsmen trilogy?
It's funny. You should ask. I did a movie with Jonathan Bennett called Christmas House, and we became friends on that. And then I was at Christmas Con actually, and I was hanging out with him and his husband there. And he said, I want to do the Groomsmen movies, kind of like a male version of Wedding Veil. Let's go get Tyler to make sure he still wants to do it, because I guess they had talked earlier in the day. So we found Tyler and everybody's like, yeah, we definitely want to do it. Like, great, we'll go make sure that we pitch it. And we were in pitching like 2 or 3 weeks later, and then it was development from there on. So it was kind of a no-brainer with those two guys. Yeah. So it went pretty quick.
So we can thank Jonathan. This was his brainchild.
Yeah, Jonathan has a lot of brain children, to say the least. I mean, I definitely, I call him Mr. October, especially this year, between the Groomsmen, all the other hosting things he has, Finding Mr. Christmas. It's just nonstop with him. So he doesn't let anybody sleep, especially James. But him and Tyler had already had a pretty good idea of what they wanted it to be and what the idea was back then. And then I can't say too much more about these movies at all without mentioning Felicia, Kennedy Flamer at Hallmark. I'm not sure if you guys get to meet her yet.
No.
But she's our exec that was, we call her Queen Felicia, because it's been a process, and the people that don't get enough recognition are these execs at the network who hear the ideas and just stick with them all the way through. And there's been a lot of changes and things that have happened along the way, but she is just, if I called her right now, she would answer on the second ring. And that just means everything when it comes to making these movies, especially when it's, you're in Bulgaria and you're 10 hours or 13 hours ahead, and she still answers the call. So you got to give her all the credit for keeping the movies alive and getting them on the air for us.
Shout out to
Queen Felicia.
Yeah.
Queen Felicia.
Absolutely. So you filmed these in Bulgaria, right?
Yeah, we did a little bit of different places, but a lot of it was in Bulgaria, and then we got to spend a nice amount of time in Greece as well, which can't complain about that. We're actually in Greece for Jonathan's birthday. So after all of these ups and downs, to be able to be shooting like a really instrumental part of these movies on Jonathan's birthday in Greece, it was next level. And Bulgaria was beautiful. I mean, there's from the Black Sea. I mean, we literally shot in almost every corner of the country, and get to shoot just beautiful scenes. I think everyone will really, really like in the movies.
Yeah,
So-
we love a destination movie.
Right.
Yeah.
But as a producer, what are some of the like hurdles when you're filming abroad?
You know, the time zone can be tough because ultimately, you know, we're making the movies that we, you know, the key is making the same movie together, right? So when it comes to the network, when it comes to the cast, when it comes to the director, the producers, if we're all on board to make the same movie, it's a very easy movie to make. That being said, and I always look at it as kind of like planning a wedding, and the network is the bride, and we're kind of just making sure that it happens. Right. But the last thing you want to do is have the wrong flowers for the bride's wedding. Right. So the challenges with like the time zone is, do we have this wardrobe? Do we have, you know, this location needs to change? And, you know, we were shooting in some really beautiful locations. And I would say even in hindsight, I wouldn't change it for the couple that we lost to where we ended up shooting because they ended up working out. But, you know, all of a sudden, if everybody on the network side is expecting us to be shooting something and then we lose that location in the morning, it's 4:00 in the morning. So It's like, try to get somebody on the phone to say, do you mind if we go from here to here? But again, It was never a problem and it all worked out.
So walk us through a little bit about the entire process. So you have the idea, they approach you about it as a producer, and then you all go and talk to Felicia. And then we know Rick Garman was a writer. So how does it all come together and you get to where you are filming?
In strides, and it's a marathon, in short. So Jonathan and Greg Baldwin, who was written a couple of the Hallmark movies as well. He did The Holiday Sitter. He did Wedding of a Lifetime. It was kind of their brainchild. Greg came on in the very beginning, and we started with a script. And then the writer's strike happened. Right. And this is the thing that happens with a lot of these movies. Scheduling can be insane. So initially it was Felicia from the beginning, and then there was a couple other execs as well, like Liz and Bart and a few others that were there to help. But so we started on that script, and then the writer's strike happened, and then we needed to figure out how to pivot as fast as we could once the strike was over, which is in hindsight, like a year and a half ago now. Yeah. And then luckily, Rick, you guys know Rick, right? Yeah. I mean, Rick is a mad scientist. He's like a computer. He's like, you don't need ChatGPT. You just get Rick Garman and you just throw things at him, and he's just like, how about this? ChatGPT. He really is. And he, brings characters and insight to things, which was really helpful for us because we were kind of in an echo chamber for a while. Mm-hmm. And not only did he come up with and bring new ideas and characters to the table, but he kept the things that we really loved, and he didn't get rid of those. And he kind of like shaved off some corners. So once the strike was over, was when we just realized we had to go as quickly as possible. And then, it was just, how do we make all this work? How do we get these scripts done as fast as possible? And then it was, again, Mr. October decided he was going to go on Broadway. So next thing
yes, you know, he did. Spam a lot.
Yeah. So then Jonathan, now Jonathan's on Broadway. So it's like, well, how are we going to shoot these movies? But we scheduled it. And then also Tyler, goes even more infamous with the Chiefs movie. Yes. So now we're trying to figure out how to shoot all these movies around Jonathan, around Tyler, and all of those things we were working on figuring out. But I will say that no matter what, the biggest challenge, which ended up being the biggest blessing for these movies, was definitely the role of Pete, because you guys know this world, right? You guys know the characters and the actors in this world, and there's like the Marvel universe, but then there's like the Hallmark universe, right? And the Hallmark universe is a lot more passionate, I think, than the Marvel universe. And if you can imagine Jonathan, Tyler, and I, for the longest time wondering who's going to play the character of Pete, because he was like the man, he was the third guy who wasn't cast yet. Right. And every single actor that you could imagine, we were trying to decide who's this, who's that. And then during all the conventions, during all the times we were just hanging out, it's just like, who could be that right person? And then BJ Britt.
Yes.
And I can't tell you how it's like, it's emotional. Like BJ is next level, and all the guys will tell you the same thing. And we weren't sure, and everybody was, throwing their 2 cents. And I think it was Sam DePippo and Jessica that said, oh, BJ Britt. I think they threw his name out there. And as soon as he came on board, and we didn't all meet until we were in Bulgaria.
Oh, wow.
And we all met for dinner, like the day everybody landed. Yeah. And it's just been like glue ever since. So anyway, that's a very long, the long story of how getting cast Pete as BJ was the best ever, which really helped make the movies come together, as you'll see. I mean, and it's movie 1.
Right. He kind of launches it with First Look.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Which airs on 10/17. Yep. So that's happening shortly. And we will post this quickly. And so it will be up. So people can look for that first movie. They're airing one a week for 3 weeks in a row. And then they'll be available there on Hallmark Plus. But it starts out with First Look, then Second Chance, which is Jonathan Bennett's movie, and then with Alexander Lincoln, and then Last Dance is the last one with Tyler Hines and
his mystery,
And
so, do you guys know who's playing?
No,
Gabriella?
No, I do not. We do not. I don't think it's out there.
I will tell you, I will probably butcher her last name, but it's Elena. Oh man, like now she's going to get so mad at me for not pronouncing her name right because I practiced, but let me see. And it's also terrible because, she's going to get so mad. Ruscani? I'm sorry, I'm butchering her name. If we're going to edit anything, it would be this, but she'll understand. But I'm just going to say that, she is the Apollonia of the Groomsmen movies. So I'm not sure if you guys saw The Godfather, but
yes.
I mean,
same thing. When it comes to casting in these movies, Sir Ron, as you guys know, Ron Oliver is our director. And he just, worked with our casting director, and the casting in these movies is just unreal. Again, I'm just going to gush about these movies forever because it's a family reunion. It's a family. It's like, I can't tell you the experience that we all had on these sets working together, and we were all together the entire time because we shot the movies all together.
How long was it, Ryan, that you were all filming these? Because we know they're usually like 2 months. Okay.
Yeah. 2 months.
Because they're usually like 3 weeks, right? So.
Yeah. So, 3 or 4 weeks, but times 3, and then in Bulgaria and in Greece. So, and, it's like all living in the same big hotel together, and we had to travel from one part of the country to the next. So from Sofia, Bulgaria to the Black Sea and Varna, down to another old, medieval town there, back to Plovdiv, another.
I was just gonna say, this sounds so horrible. I just can't even imagine.
Like the worst 2 months of your life.
I think everyone will tell you the thing, it never got old. It was always just, and we were shooting 6-day weeks a lot of the times too. So we were just always shooting.
You ever need people to come and like haul stuff around for you? Sit in their
Don't offer. Don't offer.
Bring us.
You'll be there.
Coffee. I mean, we got this.
We are really good at pouring coffee, so.
And we're great at working. Like we take direction really well. So.
We're good.
We'll take you up on it. We'll take you up on it.
Let's go. I would. That is the way I'd love to travel. Is like actually being involved in something as opposed to like just being a tourist. So like to be someplace.
This was, it's really, again, it's hard to put into words because I'm way too close to it now after all this time, but the tone and the familiarity with everybody, because starting at the top when you have Jonathan and Tyler and them being so involved in every little thing. I mean, every notes call, even, Jonathan would be on Broadway and he would be getting on these conference calls, like every step of the way. So there were no surprises. So when it came to decisions being made, everybody was on the same page and there were no surprises.
Mhm.
So that results in the crew. I mean, the crew that we had was just amazing. This Bulgarian crew for the most part, other than, Ron, the director, and a couple others. And everybody knew it was more like shooting, a reunion video than it was movies.
I love that. I love that.
Especially as people kept coming in and out, because we all traveled together like in this big circus, because we were shooting all 3 movies at once. So on day 5 of shooting, we would shoot the beginning of the 3rd movie, the middle of the 1st movie, and the end of the 2nd movie all together. And we'd be walking through, we'd be shooting in a restaurant, and then, other cast members who were working that day would be eating next door. And then they would come over and like be saying hello. So it was surreal.
So you really were all together even when people weren't working yet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I kind of love that Jonathan Bennett is calling in while he's currently doing a Broadway play, because, everybody on Broadway clearly states about how much extra time they have when they're doing a Broadway production. Like, it's insane.
He's a machine though, right? Like he doesn't really count as a human being, but he would be calling in and like
robot, yeah.
He'd be calling in full costume with a wig on and like talking about a very serious note or like a comment. So it was lucky, but again, it's like everybody that was involved, for the most part, especially, Ron's directed like 20 of these movies. These guys have been in a bunch of movies. So everybody understands the language so well that it's not like a surprise. And then when it comes to new people coming on board, it just kind of fits. And then as a typical producer, I want to like make sure that I mention everybody, but even the way that everybody kind of clicked in, the role, again, it's like, it's just too much to even think about because how it all kind of worked out, and now they're all starting to come out. But Heather Hemmons playing BJ's love interest. What's interesting about her is that her character was always the bride. And, these movies are told from the quote unquote male point of view, but still kind of geared knowing that a core amount of the audience are women who love and enjoy these movies. So it's not just about watching these guys, joking around and like having their moments, but it's like they're there to remind you of your brother or your son or your cousin or your boyfriend or your husband, and like seeing it from that point of view. And so she was definitely, especially the first movie, like she's the first love interest, the first bride. So she kind of knows how to like deal with the guys, and she knows how to like, oh, like, yeah. Like, they go on an adventure, and it's just like, go on your adventure. It'll be fine. Like, and that's like a character that, as you'll see, again, I'm trying not to give it all away. But the point of view is definitely of these guys and their debauchery, but it's kind of through the point of view of women in a lot of ways.
Right.
And what's great about Heather is that she came in, she was the only person who had to leave and come back, again, because of scheduling. And so she came in and we did this first part, and then she was gone for 2 weeks, and then she came back. And it was interesting because in that time we shot this adventure trip. So like she was away from us, and then she came back, and then she really did come back. So it all kind of like ties in and works out. So again, I could rant about these movies forever, so you guys have to like interrupt me as we go.
No, we like listen, our favorite interviews, Don't Tell the Actors, are usually the behind the scenes people, the directors, the writers, now producers. Like we love this stuff. So you might find it boring, but we find it interesting. So share away.
Well,
we love these points of views. I thought it was interesting that you were talking about how you were acknowledging that it's we're seeing this guy's point of view, but I think people are really enjoying the balanced point of view, like getting the bride, getting both sides instead of all one-sided. And so it's fun you're bringing that other side.
Yeah, these movies are so meta in a lot of ways. Because the guys and I, and now BJ in this, I mean, again, like we just have an endless text thread that goes off all the time. of ridiculous things. But in terms of like case studies, Jonathan's big thing was like, I had my friend's wedding, and he started by basing these movies off bachelor parties that he had been in.
Yeah.
And then quickly, I mean, I've literally been in 20 weddings as a groomsman before. Never a best man, but we won't talk about that. But so that was like a lot of the story and a lot of those elements we kept going back to, which Felicia was very collaborative of making sure that we kept to, is like, it's not just about, going to get tuxes. It's like, it's the story behind that. It's like, what's the real conversation? We're not talking about the color of cummerbunds or bow ties. It's like, what are those conversations while we're there and that's happening? And that bled into the writing. And again, we were just throwing things at Rick as it went along. And then Ron as well, because Ron Oliver, our director, ended up having to do a lot of writing on 3 because we were changing so much in the schedules. So much of that is reflected, which I think is, when a lot of my friends' wives or fiancés would always be wondering, like, well, where are you guys going on this bachelor party or these dinners? And it's just like, it's not as exciting as you might think. It's a lot more conversations about life. And again, there's a lot of conversations about life between men in these movies, especially in the first movie, which you guys will see, which is, the chemistry between these guys couldn't be any realer and couldn't be any more organic. I hate using that word, but you'll see.
I love that point of view that the guys talking while they're doing things, which is very kind of how guys naturally share their life experiences with each other, is they share about themselves while they're experiencing something else, right? Even classic, going fishing or playing cards or whatever it might be. Yeah.
And it's usually in the form of a powder keg to some degree, right? Because usually men, if they communicate, they'll talk on the phone, maybe a little bit, or they'll text, but they don't really sit around and have deep, meaningful conversations until hour like 4 or 5. It'll be either a lot of Xbox or a lot of football. And then eventually it starts coming out when they're together. Yeah. And that's what a lot of this is. And again, it's the relationship between these guys who've been friends since they were like 13. And along the way in life, you have different friends that you keep, some from childhood, some moving forward. But these are 3 friends who were, friends for so long that they know each other really well. And they call each other out on things really quickly too. So
I kind of love that they've been friends since they were teenagers and then they're still hanging out. I think, guys often do that, stay friends for a very long time, and will pick up even if they haven't seen each other for years. They'll just be like, yeah, we're still friends.
Right back into it. And thinking back to how, this is a fun fact, because when we first started, just the kind of like the 3 of us and how these were going to happen, and then developing along the way with the different writers. And then obviously Ron came on, and it was like, great, now we have Ron, and we've each worked with Ron. Actually, Tyler worked with Ron years ago as a child actor, which was interesting. But then it was like, okay, great, we're going to get Ron. And I hadn't done a Hallmark movie with Ron, but I had done another movie with Ron years ago. And he lives in Palm Springs. And as soon as it's like, great, we can get Ron, I drove to Palm Springs and had dinner with him. And the first thing he said was, he's like, I know that Jonathan told me all about these movies, and I know that you guys want to make the Hallmark Hangover, but that's not going to happen because it's not going to be that. But he goes, I know what the objective is. So, we're going to do the best that we can to make these, Hallmark movies, but they're still kind of films that, because as we all know, right, the audience is going to be what the audience is going to be. But, 80-90% of the time, my dad watches these movies with my mother. My friends watch these movies with their girlfriends, with their wives. They're movies that the men and others will sit and comfortably watch and really, I think, engage in more so than, other maybe movies in the past. And were we going to get the hangover? No. But the best part about all of these movies is the very first scene that we shot, which I wasn't even thinking. I was just like, oh my God, we're making these movies. It's finally starting. It's the 3 guys, and they're sitting on lawn chairs. And I'm not going to say that they're hungover, but and I'll probably get in trouble for saying
on lawn chairs.
They're sitting on lawn chairs.
He's not feeling well. Yeah.
It's the day after the wedding, and they're all drinking Bloody Marys, and they're all wearing sunglasses in the shade. And so we shoot the scene. Again, it's the first scene where all three guys are together. And it could have been the first scene. It could have been the last scene. It just feels so perfect and natural. It feels exactly what it wants. And so, Ron moves on, he cuts, and he comes over and goes, told you. Like, you want to do, like, this is as close as you're going to get to the Hangover of Hallmark. It was like, he did. Like, he shot the first scene as a hangover scene. But, again, it's light and it's really fun and it's relatable. So that's Ron.
So relatable. And our family, we've done multiple times after weddings. The next day, you come to wherever we're at or meet at an auntie's house or something, and then presents are opened then. And so there is a lot of that lawn chair sitting. We were all up late last night. This is very relatable.
That was the goal.
Yes. And I love how you were just talking about, not quite doing the Hangover, but it's just something a little bit different than we normally get to see. And then it's something maybe a little more relatable to the average watcher, right? So these stories, it's just, I love the new twist that we're starting to see.
Everyone, the goal was, you've got to be able to relate to somebody on these movies. Everybody needs to relate to somebody. And in terms of the casting, again, I mean, I hope you guys get to meet and spend time with BJ, because I can't tell you, it was just like, because, if we have such good chemistry and there's such great momentum, and then you cast the wrong person in that role, the next thing you know, it's like, what if he's grumpy, or what if this happens? But it's just, nope. It was like, it clicked right away. So it made it really easy. And so, you see a guy like his character, Pete, and you understand, like, oh, he's the one who just always has to be responsible. He's the one who, as soon as the check comes, he's telling everybody how much their salad was. He's splitting up the bill. Jonathan's character is going to be Jonathan. We should have done this after at least the first. Yeah. But it's there's as much heart in these movies as we could jam into 3.5 hours, or however long they end up being.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So who do you relate to? Which character?
Oh God. I mean, I guess I would say for the longest time, I was the default Pete, because there was no Pete. So when we'd be doing table reads and we were doing all these things, it was a lot of, okay, like you're on that character. But Jonathan Bennett is Jonathan Bennett, and his character in these movies is very much him, and Tyler is Tyler, and they got to bring. I feel like this was an opportunity for them to bring a lot of character to life, although they've taken some twists and turns as the movies progressed. But I'd probably land at Pete for a while, just because I'm the one chasing them around to make sure that they read this. Because, it's like, hey, make sure you read this draft before we send it in, because I want you to be happy with what it looks like.
Great.
Yeah.
I love that. So what is the advantage of shooting a trilogy that is different than when you just shoot a normal movie of the week?
I think it goes back to the key of these movies, or any movie, is if everybody's making the same movie, it's very easy to make. So I mentioned, like, I met Jonathan on Christmas House 2, which was the sequel. And because it was already Christmas House 1, everybody knew their lanes and everybody knew those positions. Right. So it gets very easy to have that language, almost like shooting a regular series. It's like everybody knows everybody's role, and you're developing characters. And it's also with these 3 movies, and each of these characters, every single character actually in the movie, on number 1 to the call sheet to number 45 or 46, everybody has some kind of an arc, and everybody has a place to be, because believe me, we had to figure out how to jam all this in. Yeah. So once everybody's there together, they know where their place is, and they know when their moments are going to be. So, because it's very difficult to have a scene with, BJ and Heather, and then just have Tyler and Jonathan in the background pretending to, eat sushi. And they're just sitting there for 9 hours as like glorified background actors. But, at the same time, it's an easy balance. So it helps. I don't know if I murdered that question or not. But.
No, I think that's great, because it's just, they all when we've seen these series of movies or movies that have had another movie after them, we've seen a few trilogies now and stuff. You get a more like the depth. It gets to be expanded a bit when you're doing this kind of thing, and as a viewer, we're appreciating it.
Yes.
Great. Well,
the world building.
These are all told. I won't give too much away. Again, I'm trying not to. And if I wish you guys had seen at least the first one, but these are movies told as a story. So there is a through line through the entire series, which everyone will pick up on pretty quickly, which helps because then it kind of leaves breadcrumbs along the way and makes you kind of pay attention a little bit more. And another challenge too was making sure that how do you tell all of these 3, 4, or 5 different stories at once in a way that leaves some room for other things. So there are a lot of breadcrumbs and Easter eggs in there across the board for the whole world. So,
can you give us a little Easter egg to look for?
Yeah, I think that everybody will say to me. Let's see, what's one that won't get me in trouble? They're all going to get me in trouble. There is coming through these movies. Well, the first thing I'll say is, before I forget, because this is important, when Jonathan first told me about these movies and how he wanted to do them, the thing that I related to the most was in Christmas House 2, there's this amazing scene between him and Rob Buckley where they're 2 brothers and they're arguing. Mm-hmm. And they have like this real moment as they're like, it starts as something ridiculous, like all boys kind of don't get along. And then they arguing, and then they have this kind of real moment together. And it's like really honest and it's really relatable. And then like they come back together. And that was, I think, one of the best scenes I'd ever been a part of. And so when he told me about these movies, I was like, okay, but... And he's like, Jonathan, she's like, I know she's going to say, you want to do the Rob Buckley scene? I was like, yes. Like that scene is the 2 brothers fighting, but you know what they're fighting about. It's not really what they're fighting about. And then they come together. And I was like, if we can have that in these movies, I think that's the most important. And he went on to tell me about, he already had a bunch of ideas, which of course we put in the movies. So they were there already. And I think that, again, what that and those moments is you might not relate to what they're arguing or fighting about, but you can relate to arguing with a sibling or arguing with a parent or whoever it might be, and where that really comes from. Right. And when people really love each other or people really have that connection, then they don't really argue about the things, they're arguing about not the things. So when the argument does come about and boils over, it's just like it explodes into that. And that's the question of how do we make sure that these movies can be relatable to everybody watching them, whether it's, spoiler alert, a 12-year-old or an 80-year-old. And if you have that point of view kind of spread loaded through all these movies, then someone gets to see themselves every 15 or 20 minutes through. And that being said, Tyler's daughter in the movie, Betty, played by Chloe, is just, she's got the side eye smirk through all these movies. And, she's the kid watching, because, who listens to and pays more attention than anybody in our families other than the kids, right? They're the ones whose ears are always open. And they're the ones that if they're sitting there on the couch watching these kind of movies with their family, even though they could feel like they're a little bit too old or a little bit too young to watch them, those are the ones that this helps. This kind of, I'll sit on the couch with mom or grandma or whoever and watch these movies and feel good. And so that character was one that we really wanted to make sure that we got right. And Chloe's just knocks it out of the park.
Yes, so. Actually, Rick said the same thing, that she was fantastic.
Great. Yeah. She's a star. She's a little, again, Ron Oliver casting.
Yeah. We also love a little kid shade. When the kids can throw a little shade, it's always fun.
Oh yeah, and she calls them all out too. You'll see in the movies. She's not afraid to say, it's like, oh yeah, you can't kid them, right? So
right.
Love that. Okay, so how did you end up in this anyway? How did you get to be a producer, and how did you always want to grow up to be a producer, or tell us a little bit about how you get started.
Nobody wants to hear about me. They want to hear about the guys jumping around in Santorini. No.
We'll get back to them, I'm sure.
Well, I'm from Rhode Island, like you are, right?
Yes, we're we grew up a town apart. Yeah,
probably.
So,
yeah,
next door towns. Yeah,
next door. And I always knew I wanted to be in the film industry in some way. And I first started working for Michael Correnti, who's from Rhode Island.
Legend.
Yeah, he did Federal Hill, and so I started working for him when I was in my mid-20s and learned a bunch. And then I ended up eventually moving out to LA. And everybody thinks that they have an idea of usually what they want to do. Most people default to wanting to act or direct. Nobody thinks that they want to be a casting director or a gaffer. But the industry just usually kind of gets to you, and you find your way into what position best fits you. And this, producing is just something that, again, when I was in high school or when I was even younger, it was just like the bill comes and I'm the idiot who's like, you got the salad, you got the 3 Diet Cokes. This is how much everybody owes.
Sounds like our order, Julie.
I was gonna say that. You've been out to eat with us.
So it kind of just fits in that way. And, everybody, the key to making great movies is everybody making the same movie and not crossing, I'm not going to try to tell Jonathan how to act.
Right.
And I'm not going to try to, tell Tyler what kind of sunglasses he should wear. And it's just like when the pieces fit together, they fit. And it's like knowing your role in your lane is what's important. So producing is the thing that basically I can try to wrap my head around the most.
Of that. Kids don't say when you ask them, what do you want to be when you're older? I want to be a producer. That's not what they say, right?
Not at all.
So after high school, did you go to college or do any other training? What did you do?
No, I mean, I followed Correnti around for like 2 years.
Can we stop there? What projects did you work on with Michael Correnti? Because around that time, we had a lot of movies being filmed in the area. Yeah. Now we just get the sequels. But yeah, so tell us more about that. I'm especially interested.
Okay, well, I worked on Brotherhood with him. Back, he did an episode of that and a couple other things. What else? We did a movie called Brooklyn Rules with Freddie Prinze Jr. and Nina Savari, who's from Rhode Island. What else? And we were working on the Cianci movie for years, which was written, by David Mamet at the time, who's an amazing screenwriter, playwright. And so, I mean, a lot of it though was development, which is what, we've been working on these movies for over 1.5 years now. And you start in one direction and then things can change and pivot. And you just got to be ready to say, oh, we're going to shoot at a waterfall, but we don't have the waterfall now. So we have to change into this. Right. And that's something that Michael, he started in the theater. And so he did American Buffalo, which was another Mamet play, which he shot in Pawtucket, 25, 30 years ago. And that whole thing just takes place in one location. So it's about the characters and the story. And so with this, I just keep going back to Groomsmen. It's like, it's about 3 best friends and the stories of how their lives are together and the different turns they take. Right. And everything else is just noise. And, I've done a handful of these movies now, the Hallmark movies. At the end of the day, it's like, it's a relationship in the story, whether they break up at a 5-star restaurant or they break up at a pretzel stand. It doesn't, it's the story and the relationship that people care about.
Yes.
Right.
Would
you be willing as a producer to take on another project that was like 3 movies again or something like that?
Yeah, they're really fun, but it comes down to what the story is. It comes down to like, how much can I relate to this and bring something to the table? Because after a while, is there like a challenge or is there something that's set already? Like Christmas House was an example of like an established family and a set that was there. Right. And then we had to figure out how to kind of bring it up a level to something else. But it's like, I kind of was just plugged into that element. Building something from the ground up again, where it's 3 movies about 3 very different relationships, or I could say like 6 very different relationships if you looked at the grand scheme of things. Yeah, it'd be great to do, but like it really comes down to, do you belong there? Like, is it something you can relate to and make sense? And I don't know. Well, I don't know who else, because there's a lot of other great Hallmark actors, obviously, that have been in this world as well. But when it comes to making a movie about groomsmen in the Hallmark universe, it's just like, I've done like 15, 20 of these movies now. Tyler, Jonathan, like we've all done it and we're in that space. So we understand it. And it's about, guys in their late 30s, early 40s who are dealing with weddings and friendships. So it's like, that's an easy place to live. If you ask me would I want to go do it about like space, probably not, because I'm just not, I'm not into rockets or space to really be able to like weigh in on that.
Right. So how did you first kind of get into the Hallmark as a whole, like this network? Did I already ask you that? No.
I don't know. I don't think so. So one of my other partners, Steve Stabler, who he's been around forever. He did all the Dumb and Dumber movies. He's like a staple Hollywood producer. Really great guy, really great mentor of mine. He had a meeting with Randy Pope, who's been there forever. And they're like, oh, we're looking for movies. So we went out and I was working with Steve at the time, just looking for things. And we found a script from another friend, Jess. And she's like, oh, I have a movie that could be a Hallmark movie. And so we went in and pitched it, and then we made it. That was with Paul Green. That was like 8 years ago. And Erica Christensen. And that was it. That was the first one. And then it just kind of cascaded from there.
Which Paul Green movie was that?
It was called Anything for Love.
Yeah.
And then in that movie, Antonio Cupo was in. And Antonio's by far one of my best friends ever. Which, he was at the Martini Town event.
Yeah, we did get to meet him briefly.
Yeah. And so then we started getting to know each other. We made a bunch of movies together. So, it's a big community. Again, it's you guys have seen it. You guys are around enough, and you guys have done so many of these. It is really a thing. Like the people that are into this world and care about each other, from like the top down, there's just a really big community now.
That's something we hear from everybody. Yeah.
The community is so impressive to me, actually, and how connected the community is very impressive.
It's almost so obvious, and it's traditional, right? Because the first early years of 100 years ago, the studio system, whether it was Paramount or MGM, it started out in this way. Like Warner Brothers was Warner Brothers because they were a studio system and they had actors on the payroll and they had directors on the payroll, and they'd show up to work and they'd go shoot a movie. And that's basically, Hallmark has been doing that now for like 15, 20 years. And they've been doing it before FX. They've been doing it before Netflix. They've been doing it before. And so right away, it's that smaller world. So even it's very rare that actors get paired up and they don't know each other already, or they don't know somebody who they've always worked with. And it just happens quickly. So it's the community that's important. And everybody wants to work. Like, oh, these actors want to work together, or they can't wait to work with this director. So yeah, it all really pays off.
Love that.
We're lucky.
Yes. It's a wonderful community watch and to talk to. We often hear that they talk about like being at camp when they're shooting these movies. It's why we were like, 2 months in Europe all together. This sounds horrible.
Summer camp.
It was, there's the, we've created so many, like the catchphrases, the BJ sandwich. BJ created the sandwich, which are like, what are you eating? It was like an open-faced grilled cheese with tomato with barbecue sauce and cucumber and like all this weird stuff. Like, what are you eating? And then everybody started eating it. And then it became a thing, and it was just like, all right. And then, people be randomly asking him that he on the press events and everything. It's like, what's a BJ sandwich? He's like, how do you know about that? But it's like, welcome to the world of Hallmark. Everybody knows everything.
And now if we go to some event, there'll be a BJ sandwich offered there. We'll know.
There should be.
That seems perfect. I need one of those. feels like barbecue meets some open face sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, everything but the barbecue sauce, I think, for me. Yeah.
I don't get the barbecue sauce either, but it's allegedly it's great. So,
Yeah.
well,
Okay.
what do you guys? I guess whether it's there or not, you guys are the audience, right? It's interesting because we can't go back and put it in, but I'm wondering if there are things that you guys might project that could be in these movies, or things that you really want to see that could maybe be in future movies when it comes to what they are, because we were really just trying to figure out how to stuff as much as we could into these movies in the safest way possible. So it'd be interesting to hear what you guys' perspective is, because everybody watches the trailers and everybody guesses, but I'm wondering what you guys are thinking.
I have thoughts right away. When you said they've known each other since they were 13, we love a good backstory. We love the depth that can give to a character in these movies that sometimes maybe don't have as much depth, and that a trilogy gives you the opportunity to bring a lot more depth. Just like a series often will allow you to explore more of those emotional ranges, and then up the fun. Like, we like being in on the fun, right? Like you like to know, like, you're getting taken along for that,
right?
Okay.
What Julie said. And we don't ever do movie reviews, but if you ever want our opinions about things, we're not quiet about it. So
Great.
We will share whatever you want to know. But yeah, I think that this is something that the audience has been wanting for a long time. I mean, I remember years ago talking with Wes Brown about it on the podcast, about having something from the male perspective. And then they came out with the 3 Wise Men movies, which were great, obviously huge hits, but they weren't really about like the love stories. So I think that's what's going to be so fun about these 3, is we're getting the love story side of that. So not just the brothers and, all that, but another level,
Great.
hopefully. So that's what I'm excited for. Yeah.
Here's the other thing. It doesn't have to be about the love story. And I think
It doesn't,
3
but I
Wise
think
Men
it's
and
fun
a
that
baby
it is.
kind of blew that out of the water. Like it kind of blew up what we thought of as a Hallmark movie.
Okay. Yeah. That was the balance that we were definitely trying to lean into. At the same time, when it comes to things like backstory, we peppered in as much as we could of those things. Like the interesting thing, which again, this isn't a spoiler, but Jonathan's character he was a Major League Baseball player. He was a pitcher for the Phillies, and then he hurts his shoulder, and then he can't pitch anymore. But then he's encouraged by his friends to move on. So there's history and there's depth of things that we don't really get to see, but we know that it's sprinkled in. And then Tyler's has his daughter that he will just do anything for. But you guys, know Tyler. Tyler would or will make an amazing father, and he gets to play one of these movies. And is very Tyler type way. So it's just
okay.
Really
I feel like I get that. Yes.
We get that in ways that, I always tell people there are things that are amazing about Tyler the man that you don't see on the screen, and we have seen play out in a couple of fan events, just in a way I can't say enough about how kind and generous he is.
Yeah.
Is probably one of the biggest things. But back to what do you want to see in the movie, though? These are Hallmark movies, and we're here. We love a good trope.
I mean, you got to have the tropes. Yeah.
Give us an eye-rolling teenager. Give us a miscommunication.
I can't believe. I just can't believe that. And hey, maybe you guys can tell me on or off after you've seen them what you thought about it. But I can't believe that we got as much in as we did. And again, they're kind of sprinkled in, if they have to end up being fan films later on, or side stories on Reddit, whatever they might be. But we literally tried to get in all those little pieces for the future or for wherever else it might be. Because that was something that we wanted to make sure that we did have in there. And again, going back to Tyler as a great person and as a great father, what would not just a a father trying his best to, but like, what would Tyler do in that situation, in that character? And there were moments, again, you'll hear it, like, where if things go wrong, it's just like some people beeline to, help. And I won't tell the story, but I'm sure somebody will, where there was an amazing moment where it was just like, oh boy, what's this? And then it's, again, like, you'd think that everybody has known each other their entire lives in these movies.
Right.
Because of that, I won't even keep saying chemistry, but just those relationships. But yeah, these guys are just like knuckleheads. The way they get along, the way they did this press event last week in New York, it's just like
the press
they didn't
event.
let anybody. Yeah.
The footage coming out from the press event was so much fun, and those guys have really done some fantastic things on social media in the past and currently are for these. As fans, we love that additional piece of great social media. They have some pretty spectacular things that they put out. So tell them to put out some more if they've got it.
Well,
for sure.
You guys are the ones that, especially with this platform, you guys are the ones that are putting it out, because like, everybody's listening, right? So when we're sitting around trying to figure out what would this character be doing, or who's not being heard or listened to, it really comes back to, we can just do this and see what is being looked for, what's being said. And the interviews and the podcasts that you guys are doing, like, that's where we can mine for that, and kind of fulfill it in that way to say, oh, like, here's an issue and it's a problem. How do we fill that voice in? Let's see what it's getting looked for. And that's why when I say, like, what are the kind of things you guys are looking for? It's like, if we're developing new stories, let's fill in with that.
Yeah. We love depth, right? Julie said it earlier. Yeah. I mean, I think, first of all, that's really interesting that you are all listening. You really are listening to what the fan community is saying. And people will love to know that, because they're not shy about saying what they want. But I think Julie and I watch a lot of different kinds of TV and read a lot of different kinds of books and watch different kinds of movies. But of course, we all have a Hallmark story, right? Why we watch these movies, and it's usually an escape. But sometimes you want an escape to something really meaningful, or sometimes it's a comedy. So I just love that, all of you as the movie makers are branching out a little bit and adding these touches to things we're watching or have watched on other networks and movies and read and all this stuff, and kind of adding it into the Hallmark trope, I guess. Yeah. I don't know if that makes sense, but
the rom-com piece is really again. We're loving that.
Well, that's the wish. I think what you're saying too is like the wish fulfillment in a way that is obtainable in a big way. And that goes to Ron, for doing these for so long and kind of seeing that big picture. And I mean, the way that this guy directed 3 movies, and again, block shooting means you're shooting every movie every day in different things. And there are so many through lines that, you're in Pete's apartment in all 3 movies, but he's got to figure out, and it doesn't always work that way. So he's kind of Rubik's cubing that whole thing together. But he would be the one to step in and say, we just came off of 2 really heavy scenes. We need someone to slip on a banana peel in the scene. Yeah. Like he had that in his head, which is like, he's the mad scientist too that can do that. So it's like, that was very lucky, because it's like, remember, like, it can be emotional, it can be heavy, but we have to go back to making it fun. Right. And also not a, movie 1, I don't think the trailer kind of gives it away. It's a long distance relationship. And so nowadays, how difficult are long distance relationships when you can FaceTime every day, or when you can talk so much? It's not like before where it was like long distance charges.
Right.
So there's no letter writing here.
There's no letter writing. Yeah.
This is not World War II, right?
Exactly.
So,
it's not 1990.
Yeah.
You don't have to go back to World War II.
Just the 90s. Facts. I mean, there was a little dial-up. You got mail, right? We had a little dial-up. But there was no FaceTiming. There wasn't any mobile phone. But you're right. This has been really fun. Do you have a dream project that you'd like to do?
It's gonna sound goofy, but like these movies, and the way that they basically crescendo at the end, and the way that we shot them, and the way that I mean, this checks a lot of boxes when it comes to these, like the focus, because I got to just go make, 3 movies about very relatable characters that we've got to like watch get built from the ground up with, especially now, like with all these different people,
Right.
Like these were a big deal for all of us, especially at this time in our lives. And I get very lucky to be making movies that my mom loves to talk about.
Yeah.
Right? And
right?
so like, what's better than that? It'd be great to find some other thing that would be interesting to dive into. But like, we got to really did our best with these. So for now, I'll wait for these to come out. Then I'll think about what's next.
Then you'll think what's next. Okay.
I always think that listening to you, the people you worked with on this project really made this project something special. And, as somebody who does regular kind of daily work in a completely different environment, when I walk through that door and my people are there, it's a whole different thing. And I feel like what you're telling me is like these movies were like your people were there, and it was a lot of fun.
Every step of the way. And not just there, but like, I was in room 12 in the hotel, and then BJ was next door, and then Jonathan was across the hall. And like, so we're literally like just together
It's like a frat house.
And they realize, normally every actor has their own van. And you're just like, that's a waste of money, because everybody was just jumping in together. Like they just wanted to be together. Everybody always just wanted to be together. All
Which
across the board.
Must make the projects even just so much better because you enjoy spending time with each other and working together. Yeah,
absolutely. Again, I just won't stop gushing, and it doesn't even stop with the guys. Again, it was Chloe, it was Elena, it was Alexander, who is Jonathan's love interest. I didn't realize this till like the 3rd week, that he was in his room, like playing the guitar every day. I was like, who's that person playing the guitar all day? And it was him. And it was just like, whoa, I didn't know you could sing too. So it's just, it was camp. It was the best version of camp.
Love that. We love to end by playing a little favorites game. Are you up for that?
Sure. I'm sure it's going to get me in trouble, but I'm used to getting in trouble.
Okay. So you can answer with more than one answer if you need to. Favorite rom-com?
Serendipity.
Oh yeah, that's great. Do you have a favorite TV series or a TV series you're binging?
I mean, Game of Thrones is kind of like the easiest, lowest hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Honestly, the reason it's iconic is because it's just that good.
It is that good. Okay, favorite musical or book, or both?
Oh, I mean, favorite musical would have to be Spam-A-Lot, because I'd get in trouble if I didn't say
with Jonathan in it.
Easily. And then favorite book would be The Demolished Man.
Oh.
Very late 30s sci-fi.
Yeah.
Love that.
Awesome.
Love that. Do you have a favorite food? Healthy and indulgent?
Italian food. I mean, I grew up in Rhode Island, and basically I worked on Federal Hill from when I was like 14. So Italian food is the lowest hanging.
Where did you work?
Worked at Angelo's. Do you remember Angelo's?
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like 100 years old now, I think.
It is at least over that. Yeah. I'll call myself fake Italian, but yes, she grew up there, but I did not realize how cool it was until I was in high school and I went to Italy, and then I came home and we went to Federal Hill.
Where did you go to Italy, where your family was from?
No, I've still never been there.
Okay. But, well, maybe we can talk offline where it is, because we could be related, because it is Rhode Island.
We probably are.
If
we can't find some kind of Rhode Island connection, I'll be shocked. But yes, anyway. Next one, hobby or pastime?
Walking the dog.
Yeah.
Reading and walking the dog, but just That's it. It's peaceful.
Okay, I love that. Music. Do you have a favorite musician or band?
Yeah, every one of my cousins who's actually from Rhode Island are all musicians, so they're all my favorites.
Okay, perfect. That's a great answer. I love that.
Okay, do they have a band or anything, or something we can
my
look
oldest cousin was in the bassist for Whitesnake for a really long time.
Oh, really?
Everybody knows
Yeah.
Whitesnake.
Yeah.
And now he's touring with Fantastic Negrito, who's a really popular jazz musician. Then my other cousin was in Badfish, which you may know Badfish.
Yep.
And yeah, the list goes on. They're all very musical, so I'll default to them any day.
Are you musical?
Nope.
No.
Can't even hum. Can't even hum. Felicia will tell you. I'm like, I can't do music. You have to deal with the music on these movies because it all sounds the same to me.
All right, how about this one? What's your favorite restaurant to come back to Rhode Island and go to?
That's going to get me in trouble.
You can't say Angelo's, though.
Oh, man. So my grandparents used to own the Crow's Nest in Warwick Neck. I'm not sure if you know where that is. So my grandparents owned the Crow's Nest for years and years, and that's where my parents met. Because my mother was the bartender and my father had a boat there. So I'll say the Crow's Nest.
Yeah. I love that.
That's so cool. That's a good answer. That's a high quality answer. Well, this has been super fun. Tell us again what movies you just produced. You're airing on Hallmark Plus.
Did the Groomsmen series, and they are starting Hallmark Plus 10/17, and the last one is on Halloween night. And I hope you guys watch them. Whenever they air, doesn't matter. Now, later, then, at any time. But more importantly, at least DM me the feedback because I want to hear what I actually want to hear. I don't need to hear like what you wish you saw more of, which or less of, because again, don't just say the food was great. You'll come back. Like I want to hear it so we know for next time. But I think.
Well, I have a feeling these will be turned into beloved films for Hallmark. Obviously, anything Tyler does is always a fan favorite, and the other two look amazing as well. So I don't think you have to be worried about that.
So where can fans find you on social media so they can DM you their thoughts?
Oh, Instagram's the easiest. What is my Instagram?
I think you're under Ryan Murphy. I think nothing.
Let's see. I guess I should know this, but I guess you don't. It's first Ryan said. The word first and then Ryan said.
And that's on Instagram. Well, this has been fun. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And thank you, Ryan, for joining us. And we are looking forward to the Groomsmen.
Thank you, ladies.
Bye, everybody.
Hang out with us for a minute.